Today we will be looking at a third grade geometry lesson. At the end of this lesson, students will be able to divide shapes into equal parts. First, we are going to review what it means for something to be equal. Being equal means that the pieces of the shape are the same size and have the same value. So if we look at this image below, we see that the square on the left has been split in half by the dotted line. We can see that each of these is a half, and we can see that back in our definition, being equal means that they need to have the same value, and we see that this half and half have the same value, therefore it is equal. Another way we can look at this is just by looking on the left image. We see that each half divided by the dotted line are the same exact size, therefore the whole shape has been divided into equal parts. Now we will get into different shapes and dividing them into equal parts. One thing to remember is that all parts of the shape must be equal in order for the whole entire thing to be divided into equal parts. For the first row of the circles, we see that the first one is divided directly in half, therefore it does have equal parts. The second one, however, has one big section and one small section, as you can see the big on the left and the small on the right. Therefore, it has not been divided equally, which is why there's the red X above it. The third one has two similar piece sizes on the far outsides because those are much smaller, but when we look at the middle section, we notice that it is much larger. Therefore, not all three are the same, so the whole thing has not been divided equally. The fourth one we see has been divided twice, once up and down and once from left to right, and we can see that each of those smaller pieces has been divided equally, therefore the whole thing has been divided equally. For the second row, looking at the squares, we see that the first one has been divided twice, so once up and down and once from left to right, and we can see that it has made four smaller squares, and we can also see that those are equal. For the second one, we can see that it's just been divided down the middle, so that each of those parts have been divided equally. For the third one, we see that this is just a little different way to divide the parts equally. They've done it diagonally so that we get four equal triangles this time, but we can also see that those are the same exact shapes, therefore it is equal parts. The fourth one, they have divided two equal small triangles, but then they have one large rectangle. So even though that those two small triangles are equal, we remember that all parts must be equal, so the large triangle does not make that one equal. Looking at the third row in the triangles, we see that the first one is split directly down the middle, so we can see that it has two equal smaller triangles. The second one has been cut in half up and down, but then it has been cut again, but we see that the top two triangles are much smaller than the bottom two shapes, therefore it has not been divided equally. And the third one is cut at an angle, and we see that the side on the left is much smaller than the one on the right, therefore not equal. And looking at the rectangles down on the fourth row, we see that it has been cut down the middle horizontally or left to right, and that those are definitely equal parts. And for the second one, we see that it's been cut at an angle, so one makes a triangle and one makes another shape, and we can see that the side on the right is much larger than the side on the left. And the third one has been cut into three equal parts, and we can see that each of those smaller rectangles are all equal. Now that I have talked about dividing shapes into equal parts, it's your turn to decide if these shapes below have been divided equally. Drag each shape and put it under the correct category of if it's been equally divided or if it has not been equally divided.